Good day, everyone. My name is Tori Giffen. I am the Assistant Director of Online Programs. I want to thank you all for joining us on our Instructional Design Career Series session. We have Professor David Huang, who will be talking with alumni of the college and also works over in the College of Geese, Jason Mock, who are very thankful to join us here today. I will start a brief poll to give us a little bit of insight about where you learned about our programs and things like that. And then I will have another poll at the end to give us some feedback. But with that, I will turn things over to Professor Huang.
Thank you, Tori, for coordinating the event. A lot of effort has gone into in organizing this series hosted by the Faculty of Instructional Design, Technology, and Organization Concentration. I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank Sangeeta, Director of the Online Office Online Program Office, to sponsor the event. We appreciate your support in making this concentration for our EDM students successful and immersed in a meaningful learning experience. As Tori mentioned, my name is David Huang. I'm a professor in the ITTO concentration. I also want to recognize our colleagues here, Professor Grace O, Associate Professor in the concentration, Professor Xinrong Zhu, Assistant Professor in the IDTO concentration. If you have not taken any courses from any of us, then you should. So we have courses available in spring and in the following semester. Feel to reach out to Tori and our online office staff. They will direct you to courses we'll be teaching in the spring and in the future semesters. If you are the first time here, this is our annual series bringing talented professional in terms of instructional design and technologies to share their professional engagement experiences with you. Today, I'm very delighted to host this session because I have known Jason for a long time. Finally, we are able to capture him, and he is willing to share his experience with us. So I'm going to read off a script by a means to introduce Jason, and then we will have a list of 200 questions that Jason will answer. Hopefully, we can make it into 1 hour. Jason Mock is the Senior Director of the Teaching and Learning Strategy and Chief Learning Innovation Officer at Geese College of Business at UI, where he leads a talented team of professionals dedicated to enhancing faculty teaching, developing high-quality educational materials, and supporting course delivery. Jason graduated from U of I with his master's in human resource development with a focus on instructional technologies. He has spent 25 years in online education across corporate, government, and higher education sectors, including 17 years at U of I in a variety of roles, including the last 3 years at Geese College of Education. So Jason, I didn't know we came on campus the same time.
Yeah, it's been a
So
while,
we're the
huh?
same cohort.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep. We go back a way.
So with that introduction, I'm going to open the floor to Jason. You wanna talk a little bit more about yourself beyond what we have shared, or we can directly jump into the questions you have prepared for us?
Yeah, we can go through the questions as a way of diving in. I think that would be great. But it's really great to see everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be here. As a proud alum, I am very excited to be able to share this time with you.
Thank you. So I'll just go ahead with the questions. Is it okay for the audience to just ask you a question during our
Yeah,
conversation?
sure, of course. Yeah.
All right. So feel free to type in the uh, text with the chat, and we'll circle back if there's any information there. So first, could you please tell us about your job at Geese College of Business and your instructional design career?
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, I've been at Geese now for three and a half years, where I lead the Geese College of Business Teaching and Learning Unit, which is comprised of instructional designers, digital media producers, graphic folks, quality control, accessibility. We've got project managers on the team. We've got folks who help coordinate all of our TAs. We run live sessions, and so we have technical folks. It's a really large team with a diverse set of services that we provide. We have a couple of vacancies right now, but if we were to have all of those filled, we would have about 70 full-time and part-time staff, which, as far as we know, makes our unit one of the largest teaching and learning centers within a business school in the country. And I don't take that size for granted at all, but I do think that it reflects the value that our dean sees in what my team is able to do. Just for a bit of context, if you're not aware, we have the IMBA, which is the fully online Masters of Business Association, Masters of Business Administration, excuse me, as well as many other fully online graduate degree programs. So my team helps support about 4,500 online graduate students in a given year and about 2,500 online undergraduate business minor students. Um, you may be familiar, we have a partnership with Coursera, who's been our open content provider. They also support us in the degree programs. And as a college, Geese is responsible for about 2/3 of all of the activity on campus with Coursera. So in total, we have around 160 or so MOOCs and about 6 million cumulative course enrollments through Coursera. So in my role, I have the pleasure of being able to direct our teaching and learning unit. I have a strong leadership team that helps provide a lot of guidance there so that we can strategically meet the needs of our college. So admittedly, while I no longer perform the work of an instructional designer, I have had a lot of experience in that. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but my team does include instructional designers and all of the other services that wrap around what it takes to ultimately support learners in their educational journey. And so I feel like all of those roles have a little bit of instructional design within them.
Thank you. Can I have a quick follow-up? It's
Yeah.
relevant to this question. So, if you can, could you share your typical daily routine once you start the day and before you go home, end the day? What would be the daily routine? Or there's no routine if that would be the case on campus.
Which I love actually. Every day is a unique challenge, unique set of circumstances to help work through. I do try really hard to, clear out my inbox in the morning, or at least review it to see if there are any fires and so forth. Try to protect some time for diving into some specific issues amongst the team members. Certainly, a lot of meetings help facilitate that. And then, in theory, I block time off towards the end of my day for just some deeper thinking and some, whether it's reading some journal articles or exploring what's going on in the world around me. Sometimes, urgent priorities come up and I have to focus on those, but I do try to keep as informed as I can.
Great. Thank you. I'm gonna move on to the next question. Feel free again to type your question at chat box if you wish to do so. So, what inspired you to pursue a career in instructional design, and how did you start out in the field?
Yeah, well, going back to when I was really young, this would be in the dark ages when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, but more legitimately when desktop computers were actually just becoming a thing. So believe it or not, there was a time where not everybody had a phone or a desktop computer or a laptop, but I really got into technology, how computers work, started kind of tinkering, breaking them apart, hopefully putting them back together again, sometimes more successfully than others. So that's where I got really interested in the technology side of things. And then on the education side of things, I think the same thing there. Like I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand how this new device functioned. What could I do with the device? And so I started reading up on books and so forth. Get into high school, and I had a really good high school physics teacher, and I just loved learning more about physics and all of the interesting phenomenon that can explain the world around us. And so I thought for the longest time I was going to be a high school physics teacher. In college here at U of I studying physics, I happened to get a job for what is now called tech services, doing stand-up training for faculty, students, and staff on HTML because I had that more technical bent, Microsoft Office, and that really got me thinking about like corporate education where I could still take my technical and educational passions and apply it in an educational sense. And so I did pursue from the college here my master's in human resource development, which at the time was really the closest thing that the college offered to instructional design, and it was great. Fresh out of grad school, I moved slightly more into the technical side of things. Again, dark ages. This is when the internet was coming online, and we were just starting to develop some semblances of an online course. And so, with my technical skills, I got a job for a local textbook publishing company creating online courses, and I was focused more on creating the HTML and CSS. And back then, there were some tools to do this, but they were not reliable at scale. And so a large part of my job was hand coding HTML, and that got really boring really fast. So I automated it. And apparently, I did such a great job with automation that I worked myself out of a job and then spent a couple of years working for a government contractor developing courseware for the military. And that's where I really grew in my understanding of the skills required with contracting, working with clients, quality control, and that sort of thing. Um, the instability of contract work was not conducive to my stage of life at the time with the young kids and my wife taking care of them at home. So that's when I found and landed my first of 7 jobs at the U of I campus, this time more formally as an instructional designer, working with faculty, developing online courses, and I had an opportunity to work with faculty from all 3 of the University of Illinois campuses at the time. And so it just really helped me see not just what U of I offered, but what the entire system offered from an educational experience. So, mind you, that was back in 2008, and online courses were still very new, even at the U of I. So, I did move around a bit within the U of I system, taking on a role leading the instructional design team at the campus's Center for Innovation and Teaching and Learning, CITL, where I worked for several years. Um, Along the way, I found that my team there was being distracted a bit from instructional design work by working on and helping the colleges in project and program management. So I spun off a project and program management office within CITL for a couple of years before ultimately landing in my current role at Geese.
Great. A lot of pivoting. I think that's the
It
nature
was, yeah.
of your career.
Preparing for this, I didn't really go back and count until preparing for this that I've had 7 different jobs at the U of I. So, but at least it's all been within the U of I for the last 17 years.
Great. We have a question coming in. What do you think makes for an effective instructional design manager slash director? Can you talk about the transition from ID to a management role in the field?
Sure, yeah. So I think to become a good manager, it helps to understand the work of instructional design. And I actually think instructional design as a field really prepares us to become a manager of almost anything. Um, if we think about like backwards design or deconstructing a problem into its constituent parts, that's a large part of what management is as well. I'm looking at an organizational problem or a human resource problem or what have you, and I'm deconstructing it into its constituent parts, figuring out how to solve each one and so forth. So I think that that step, and I'll probably address this more in some of the later questions of going from an instructional design to instructional design manager really involves bringing in extra value. There's so many ways that we as instructional designers can not just do our job as instructional designers, but take it to another level. Start looking at the data, start analyzing the results of the work that we're doing, seeing where it provides value to the organization, highlighting that value. And that helps the organization recognize the work that we're doing and tend to promote people from there.
Great. Thank you. I'm gonna switch back to the skill side of your professional engagement. What skills do you think are the most essential for an instructional designer today, and how did you develop them in your own experience?
Yeah, I do think that my degree from the College of Education helped prepare me for with a lot of the skills necessary to be an effective instructional designer, and as I was just kind of alluding to, an instructional design manager. Everything from the basics like the ADDIE model to I took some courses in facilitation and consultation skills and so forth. One of the foundational skills that I think at the time, and I don't know if it's in the curriculum now, but that I did not get, that I was able to learn very quickly out of grad school was project management. I think instructional designers are often a de facto project manager for almost any project. And either you're a team of one, in which case you're actually organizing your own work, or as an instructional designer, you are the tip of the spear, coordinating the work of a larger team, like the team that I am fortunate to work with of digital media, quality control, et cetera. In either case, there is a coordination of the work that needs to be done as well. The rare and largest organizations have dedicated project managers, but for the most part, instructional designers are project managers as well. So knowledge of some basic project management principles are essential. I'd say another important skill, and it may seem overstated in many different contexts, but would be, soft skills, or I've heard them called power skills as well. Unless you're designing a course where you are the graphic designer and you are the program manager and you are the subject matter expert, you're going to be working with other people. And you can be really well versed in pedagogical strategies. You can have the best PowerPoint or Canvas templates imaginable. You could have your processes spelled out to a T in whatever project management platform you're using. But if you can't work well with others, particularly subject matter experts, your project's going to fail. So those would be two of the first skills coming out of college that I learned that I thought were tremendously valuable. And then I can go on about AI a lot, and I will probably with some other questions, but I do think AI is incredibly important for an instructional designer to be skillful in this too.
Great. The next question is also about skill set. In terms of expanding the skill set, can you suggest any resources or practice that help you grow those skills in terms of project management and the power skills slash soft
Sure.
skills?
Yeah. If it's okay, I'll drop a couple links in the chat here. One for a very gentle introduction on the project management side. It just so happens that a member of my team has recently published a book on Amazon. It's called like the Instructional Designer's Guide to Project Management. It takes a very easy to read, kind of storybook format almost, to explaining why project management is important and just some of the basic and fundamental skills of project management. If you want to get a deeper understanding of project management, again, one of those opportunities I had early in my career was to become familiar with certification through the Project Management Institute to be a PMP or project management professional. I think that is worthwhile to at least explore some of that content, if not possibly also go on to get certification as well. There are dozens of good resources on the soft skills, power skills, emotional intelligence, and so forth out there. So I think it's less important that you pick the very best one that's out there because that's going to change on a daily basis. But I think it's more important that you pick one and learn from it. One that I think is relevant from an instructional design perspective, even though it's not about instructional design, is the book Influence Without Authority, which I just dropped a link into the chat because we all have bosses, and that's one thing, but we often are working with people outside of our realm of authority or even outside of the authority of our supervisors. And so this book does a really good job of just talking about what that I don't want to say transactional, but what that relationship is like from a give and take perspective, how to help people kind of come on board with where you're going, even though you don't have authority over them. So again, I think it's less about that particular book, but just immersing yourself with training and resources in that area.
Great. Thank you for sharing those publications. I think some keywords came out of your response earlier: value creation and also
Yeah.
relationship building. Right, those are two
Mhm.
important parts of being able to manage instructional design projects throughout
Mhm.
your career. The next question is an extension of that, and I think you have actually talked about it.
Mhm.
Um, how has your academic training, also professional engagement, prepare you for a career in instructional design? And are there any specific resources or courses you will recommend for someone who just starting out, entry level type of
Yeah.
professional development opportunities you would suggest?
Yeah, so I'll share three of the classes from my master's program that still like stick out to me today, and then some follow-up opportunities that I think have been helpful along the way. I mean, first of all, any fundamentals of instructional design class, like I was referencing earlier, you really need to have a strong foundation of, some of the theories and best practices there. I have found in my various roles that the organization that I work for has moved to quickly standardizing some of these theories and some of these practices into, say, a checklist, which is great in terms of, as we would call it here, reducing cognitive load for me or an instructional designer in terms of the work that they do. But I've also found in every organization that I've been a part of that the team wants to reevaluate those standard procedures about every year, every 2 years. Like, oh, can we do this better? Are we missing something here and so forth? And that's in those reevaluations. That's where I think it's important to remember the roots of what good instructional design is based on. And so I think it's important to stay current with the latest in the instructional design field, and for the first few years after I graduated, I wasn't really in tune with ongoing research and new models and new theories that continued to emerge. And so I feel like I missed out on an ability to apply those in my instructional design career. So get a good foundation, but then after you graduate, keep in tune with some of the continuing research and evolution that's happening there. A second class that was significant for my master's was one on evaluation and program evaluation in particular. And I would say that it's less about, program evaluation per se. I think that was helpful for a context, but as you move into your career, finding ways to bone up on data analytics of any variety. Using data to inform the decisions the decisions that you're making can be tremendously powerful. At the most basic level, and there's multiple levels of the layers of the onion here, probably one of the first things that we would all do, or at least I remember doing, was doing a learner survey, asking what they felt went well about the course or what could be improved. And that is absolutely helpful and important. It helps you improve your personal practice. But now imagine collecting data not just from that one class and improving that one class, but collecting data from multiple classes, maybe all of the courses in a program, or all the courses in a college, or all the training opportunities that your workplace offers. And now you can start to improve not just your own practice, but the practice of others on your team. And you can start offering insights at a level that program managers are interested in. Those conversations, when you start having those kind of back and forth conversations with people in higher up leadership, that's when you can be seen as an expert, and you can start providing insights that will help make decisions about which courses or which workshops to start offering down the road. Where are we seeing the greatest return on our investment for the work that we have to do as instructional designers? And that's when you'll start being noticed more and more by leaders in the organization. And as I was alluding to earlier, That's what will help, I think, advance your career in an upward direction. And then the third course that I'll mention that I really valued was one in facilitation skills. And it's amazing how much of the job is really facilitating good conversations. Even if you're a one-person shop, maybe you're facilitating a conversation amongst yourself, but you're almost certainly going to be working with the subject matter expert, faculty member, otherwise. And if you're working with a larger team, like I said, those soft skills. But facilitation techniques in particular, I have found have been really helpful at allowing me to get at a specific piece of information that I'm looking for, or to get two different parties to come onto being in the same page when maybe previously they weren't. Um, so after college, actually, it was only a few years ago, I took some facilitation skills training through Technology of Participation, or TOP. I don't have a link for that, but you could Google it. And it was fantastic. It was one of probably the two most formative professional development experiences of my career, and I would say a significant part of what's enabled me to be successful in my current role.
Thank you, Jason. We're going to move to questions from the audience.
Mhm.
First one would be, how can someone who doesn't have industrial design experience gain experience to be more marketable to employers and to just familiarize themselves with best practices and concepts of the field?
Yeah, especially if the question is essentially saying, I don't have much on my resume. How am I going to get a job in this field? Um, uh, I was able to have my college, my graduate school assistantship as a relevant career experience. So while I was still going through grad school, I was able to, like I said, to both deliver some stand-up training to faculty and staff on campus, but I was also able to develop new courses. So that was something I had a fortune in. But even if you didn't have that, I have seen people who will reach out to like non-local nonprofits and offer some assistance in that way. Maybe it's pro bono, maybe it's not. But I think there are organizations out there that are see the value of an instructional designer and maybe can't hire you outright, but would be willing to work with you on a smaller, maybe contract basis or pro bono basis to help you develop some experience there.
Great. The next one is more discipline specific. I'll just read it as it's written.
Yeah.
So my background is in counseling, and my goal is to build creative therapeutic learning programs. Do you feel this program supports that? Our master's program supports that direction? And how would my counseling graduate degree complement the curriculum?
Yeah, I could probably answer a portion of that question. In that, well, so for example, my wife is has her MSW in social work, and not that we have collaborated together on projects per se, but I will say that I've seen the overlap in the two disciplines. Another example that I would cite is from my time in CITL. We were working with the School of Social Work, and I know that's not necessarily the type of counseling you're talking about, but it's a related field, right? And they were doing some really innovative things with developing courses to prepare social workers for their career. Think of a counselor in a hospital situation needing to work with a patient or a client who's been going through a traumatic event, and you don't want to put an employee, a counselor or social worker in a situation of saying something wrong in that situation, because it could have devastating effects on the rest of their life. They could take it personally. They could do all kinds of things. So they had developed an online simulation tool which allowed the learner, the future professional in the counseling and social work space, to try out some conversations and get feedback on how they maybe could have approached the situation differently. So I think partly because of my wife's experiences, I think professional development in the counseling and social work, social spaces is super important. And I do think that instructional designers can absolutely bring value there.
I also want to echo Jason's response in terms of the foundation he mentioned earlier at your instructional design training to really have the understanding of how diverse the learning outcomes might be, right?
Yeah.
Working with social worker, for instance, in Illinois, it's a highly regulated, I think any of the states in the United States, highly regulated profession, right? You need to renew your licensures every certain period
Mhm.
of time, and
Mhm.
working with your cases, I think that just to me that shows the exciting part of instructional design. You get to
Yeah.
work with different of the subject matter experts looking for different outcomes. And I think instructional designers can pivot because the understanding we have and the skill sets that Jason has shared. So
Yeah, and just to add on to that, my experience at on this campus, I've worked in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, working on humanities courses, foreign language courses. I worked with Granger on computer science courses. I'm now working in business in those kinds of courses. So throughout my career, I used to keep a spreadsheet of all the different courses that I've worked on, but I've had the pleasure of being able to work with experts in just about every domain within the university. And again, to your point, David, I think instructional design gives us a universal skill set that can be applied in so many different contexts.
great. In terms of professional development, the next question is what journal articles do you read? And also, what conferences do you go to in order to stay current?
Yeah, there are a lot of good resources out there. I am probably not staying as current as I should be on the instructional design specific ones, but I will say from the conferences perspective, some of the conferences that I know I've enjoyed in recent years, and I know my instructional design specific staff have enjoyed in recent years, include OL. Now, this is more higher ed centric. If you're going to be working in the more the corporate spaces, I'm a little bit removed from that. I remember DevLearn from 20 years ago. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but in the higher ed space, conferences and professional organizations like OLC, EduCause. There's a couple of others that trying to remember off the top of my head, but
Upsia,
um,
maybe.
what was that? Sorry.
Upsia?
UPCEA, yeah, UPCEA, University Professional Continuing Education Association. Yeah, those are the three that really come to my mind. Not only do they all three offer top-notch conferences, both regional and national ones, but they also have community forums where practitioners come together and help each other out, where you can ask a question in a safe space around people who kind of know your situation, know your challenge because they've been there, and help one another out. And then it's also a very good resource for those journal articles. So honestly, I don't necessarily follow a journal anymore so much as I read some of the excerpts that come out of those weekly newsletters from those organizations.
So I just dropped a link in the text. It's from the Office of Online Learning where I part-time on campus.
Yeah.
So there's a list of the conferences that Jason mentioned some of them, and some of those I go to on a regular basis. There are
Yeah.
many options to choose from. Some of them even offer online only, save
Mhm.
you some trouble traveling to different places.
Yeah, there are
And
plenty of good opportunities out there. In my experience, some people like to pick an organization and go deep in that organization, like attend every single conference that they offer and really get involved in the discussion forums and so forth. And then there are others who like go to each of like the biggest conferences from those three or from others. And I don't think there's a right way to it, but I think it's really helpful to just at least try them out at the beginning, and if you find one that really fits with your industry that you're working in or for your style, then great, you can go really deep into those organizations. And a lot of these organizations rely, at least in part, on the help of the community to lead them. And so as you get involved in attending conferences, being on the discussion forums and so forth, you'll quickly find yourself invited to perhaps be a track chair, reviewing proposals for the conference, or perhaps taking on a greater and greater leadership opportunity, which itself is a good resume builder as well.
great. I'm trying to track which questions I still. Here we go. Uh, how important is it to hiring managers that ID applicants have a portfolio featuring instructional design samples, built-in authoring tools?
Yeah, I think a portfolio is a great way to demonstrate the skills of an instructional designer. And again, even in your very first portfolio, you'll probably have some class projects that you worked on as part of the degree. You could have some of those volunteer experiences and so forth. But I do find as a hiring manager, I do rely on the portfolio idea to review the candidates that I'm exploring. Um, I find a few things are important in a portfolio. First, transparency in your involvement. So I've already alluded to there's different formats of instructional design, different ways that shops operate. In my team, for example, instructional designers might manage 4 or 5 courses at a time over the span of 6 months. And that means we are very fortunate, we can make a really deep investment in many aspects of the course. On the other hand, one time I was interviewing an instructional designer and she had this huge portfolio and it looked really awesome and everything. And I'm like, wow, like, did you work on all of these courses? She's like, yeah, absolutely. It's been great. I'm like, wow, how many courses are you supporting at a given time? And she's like, oh, like 100 per semester. I'm like, okay. I can start to connect the dots here to realize that these are awesome courses, but your involvement was relatively small. So, and that's not to belittle her involvement, but it's helpful for a hiring manager to understand the context. So, again, for me, it's fine whatever your involvement is, whether you consulted and gave a couple of suggestions that eventually someone else implemented, great, specify that. If you are a solo instructional designer working for a small company and every single pixel and every single moment of the course was your hand creation, own that too, but make sure to communicate that in the portfolio. The uh, the second thing is realize that someone reviewing your portfolio, like say myself, will not have lived through the experience like a learner and may not realize all of the care and nuance you put into the design of it. So many times, whether it's a training workshop or an online higher ed course or what have you, a lot of the instructional designer's work comes through text. Maybe it's a syllabus, assignment instructions, navigation menus, what have you. And honestly, it's hard to review a lot of text and kind of take that time to think about, okay, what was the instructional designer thinking here, right? So rather than rely on me to interpret your portfolio, I would suggest that you find a way to present your portfolio in a way that shares your thought patterns, what you were not only which parts do you own, but what were you thinking when you were going through this, or what do you want me to see that's important? So some of the best portfolios I've seen have actually had a link to a website or what have you, but it was accompanied by a narrated video where the candidate highlighted a certain element. Notice how over on the left-hand nav, there's these particular elements, and here's why we chose these elements or what have you. So drive the conversation around your portfolio by pointing people's attention to the parts that you contributed to, A, and the parts that you think are most thoughtful and meaningful. And then lastly, I would just say I love efficiency. So let your portfolio be a double dipping opportunity. Your portfolio may help you land your next job, but it can also help you immensely in your current job. So when I'm working with a client or a faculty member and I'm describing some idea that I think you should consider putting this in your course, or should consider structuring your course in that way, almost always the first question I get is, can you show me an example? So as you're building your first, educational opportunities or workshops or what have you, start like cataloging those, taking notes to yourself about how you might want to use this, not just in your professional portfolio outside of your current job, but how you might use that to help your next project in your current organization.
Wonderful points and reminders, Jason. I appreciate your response a lot. We have quite a few questions to go through. So the next one, I just read it out loud. I've
Okay.
been teaching and coaching for 16 years and working towards a career change. from your perspective, Jason, what steps should someone like me prioritize to successfully pivot into instructional design beyond K to 12?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as we kind of alluded to before, instructional design as a field of study and then ultimately as a field of practice is very, very versatile. I think it does allow us to pivot. I mentioned the pivots that I've had in my career from corporate to government to higher ed, from foreign languages to computer science to business, right? So I think that these are very, and just so I would say embrace that. Don't feel limited to what your past experiences have been like, but recognize that these are universally applicable skills. K-12 in particular, I have less direct familiarity with, except vicariously through my wife, like I mentioned. But you mentioned teaching and coaching, and so I'm presuming that's at the K-12 level. So that gives you insights into what the big problems are in the K-12 area. And so I think about the times that I've been able to either pivot or advance in my career, it's almost always been because I've been able to tell my manager or explain to my prospective employer, look, I understand you have this problem, whatever that problem is. And as an instructional designer, one of the skills that I can bring to the table is to be able to take that problem and dissect it into its component parts and offer solutions to each of those parts. And again, that's a universal skill. But if you are looking to get into a field like K-12 instructional design and you already have your own experiences in the K-12 system, absolutely gives you a leg up. If you don't have experiences in the K-12 system, research it. Go talk to people who are there and understand what their problems are. But again, I think the big value of instructional design is the ability to solve problems. And that's what every manager wants is somebody who's going to solve their problems. So if you can understand their problems and offer solutions to those problems, that is an easy foot in the door.
Great, great. Um, I always think instructional design is a process of translating expertise into instructional deliverables, right? I think I really,
Yeah.
personally, I really enjoy the translation process. You talk to
Yeah.
subject matter experts and communication with them and trying to figure out what they need, solving problems, and
Yeah.
then you can create the deliverables based on your learners and the problems you intend to solve.
Exactly. Because the skills or the, behaviors or the attitudes that those managers are looking for, usually it's for repeatable. They want not just one person to understand how to solve this problem, but multiple people to understand how to solve this problem. So yeah, I think we add, I'm not saying that one-on-one coaching is a lesser thing, but I think we have the opportunity to reach and impact a larger group of people through the work that instructional design does.
Great. Next question.
Mhm.
Can you talk about navigating the current environment for instructional design, especially in higher education? That's a big umbrella question.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the rationale for this question is we are seeing a lot of layoffs of instructional designers and
Mm,
instructional design teams in the for-profit sector. So how do instructional designers show their value to
yeah.
employers, I think, across organizations?
Yeah, so it partially goes back to one of the skills that I recommended in data analytics. I'm not saying you have to be a computer nerd or anything like that, but I do think understanding how other people gather data, understanding a little bit about how to interpret data, understanding some of the biases that are imbued within data is really, really helpful because almost every organization data speaks. And so if you either understand data about the work that you're doing, you understand data about the work that the organization is wrestling with, that helps you be on more of a level playing field. With regards to the layoffs in particular, I will say that lots of industries have gone through this and have come through it one way or the other. I know right now there's a lot of angst about AI and how it is influencing multiple careers, including our own. And I would say that is an absolutely valid concern. And rather than feel terrible about that, I think it's really important for all of us as instructional designers to really wrestle with now before your particular organization starts thinking about other things, but wrestling now with the role of AI in instructional design. I think it's going to significantly transform our field in the next 5 to 10 years. Um, I know this question has very specific situations probably in mind, but I'll just by way of example share that within my team, we're already doing a lot of work in the AI space, partially because we think it's a good solution. In some cases, we've got some good solutions that are AI generated or AI augmented in some ways. And in other ways, because as I tell my team, I just want to get the dirt under my fingernails, and how all of us get some experience wrestling with AI so we can understand it better. Because again, it is going to change the way our industry and probably every other industry works. And if we don't have some of the basic familiarity or comfort with working with AI, then when someone else comes in and says, "Hey, can't we just do this with AI? Why do we need you?" We won't be able to counteract those arguments. Or even better, we won't be able to say, "Yes, you're right. And here's how I can contribute extra value to what AI can do." And I think that's the real message I would share is AI has its place. It is a tool, and we've had lots of tools in our repertoire in the past. I just shared my example about hand coding HTML and creating some automation to kind of get rid of that process. And what did that enable me to do? It enabled me to focus on other higher value things that I was able to contribute to the organization. So I know this question may or may not be just about AI, but I think whatever the situation is understanding it really well, mastering the environment, in this case, mastering AI, and leveraging it for the work that you're doing. Well, that's cool. I may have to
Thank
take
you,
that.
Jason. So just stay with the general topic on AI tools. We have access to Copilot, right, as part of
Yes.
DeepY. Have you or your team been looking into other tools, particularly for the efficiency and the productivity of AI projects?
So that's a whole like 3 or 4 hour conversation into itself. That all,
Just, 5 minutes.
yeah, we'll make it short. Yeah, so we've got Copilot on campus. Web Store offers licenses to the professional ChatGPT. I think I know I have Gemini, which just this week came out with version 3, and it's amazing. So in terms of like your standard LLM tools, I think those are wonderful. My team is working with a number of other tools, for example, in the lecture generation space. We're working with a tool that we record a faculty member in our studio one time, and then we're able to create a 3D model of that person, an avatar of that person. We're able to clone their voice and able to create an entire lecture of that person, photorealistic, 100%. In fact, we even did like a side-by-side comparison of the real Professor Robert Brunner and the avatar Robert Brunner, and 2/3 of people got it wrong when trying to determine which one was the correct one. In other words, the avatar looked more real to the folks that we surveyed than the real person did. We're using AI tools to augment the grading process. So right now, if you submit a paper in one of your classes, a TA is probably looking at it and they're trying to give you feedback and so forth, but they're also looking at the pile of other papers that they need to grade, right? And so we're using AI not to do the grading, but to facilitate the process by giving the TA like a starting point for a response. Like, hey, as AI, I noticed X and Y and Z things in the paper. Here are some possible feedback snippets you might want to provide. Here's where I think it scored on the rubric, but you, the TA, should go ahead and do the final scoring, for example. We're using AI to generate quiz questions, and then we have the faculty member review it and sign off on it. That streamlines the process. We're using AI for a number of different parts of our workflows and from our student-facing experiences as well. with Coursera, for example. We have an AI coach, which has been trained on all of the course content. And so, absolutely, the learner is expected to go through and watch the lectures and so forth. But if they have a question, they don't understand something, they can go to this AI coach, ask that question, and it will answer it based on all of the material that's been delivered in the course. And then the student can even say, okay, I kind of understand this, and I took the quiz and I passed the quiz, but I still don't quite get this thing. Can you ask me new quiz questions? And it will generate new quiz questions on whatever the topic is. So AI has a ton of applications in our field.
For students to identify which one is the real human professor, I think I will go with the professor that gives out fewer assignments.
Yeah, although, and this is in the 3 hour pontification part, I think assignments are going to be blurred in the future with like content delivery. Like the lecture and the quiz are going to really blur together. In the next 5 to 10 years, I think when you're going through a class, instead of watching a lecture, you're going to hear a generation of content and it's going to become a dialogue. And you're actually going to learn by talking with your avatar instructor who asks you a couple of questions, understands what you're getting and what you don't get, understands your background, and tailors the instruction, not just in a choose your own adventure style, but in a conversational one-on-one style. So again, I think there's so many exciting things in our future because of AI.
Well, Jason, you kind of answered the next question already, but I just want to keep this
Sure.
conversation going. How do you see the instructional design field evolving, and what skills or experiences would be beneficial to future instructional designers? In addition to that, I was wondering if you can share your perspective on the recurrent aspects of the skill sets, the foundational sets of it, and
Yeah.
also the non-recurrent, right? You have to deal with new problems with that particular
Yeah.
set of skills.
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, in terms of skills, everything I've said up to this point, the project management, the soft skills, facilitation skills, the foundational theories and practices of our field, AI, I think all four of those are critically important, both in my past 25 years, both where we are right here, right now, and I think in the next 25 years. I think all four of those are going to be enduring skills. Maybe AI hasn't been so much of a skill in the past, but just whatever the current and emergent technologies are. So again, 25 years ago, believe it or not, the emergent technology was PowerPoint. And my first instructional design job was, you remember these days, right, David? My first instructional design job was literally sitting down with a faculty member and teaching them how to use PowerPoint. Today, it's sitting down with a faculty member and teaching them how to use ChatGPT. And 25 years from now, it's going to be sitting down with a faculty member and teaching them how to use whatever it is, right? So I think that it's the beauty of this field is that like the technologies or the issues of the day are going to be different, but it's those dissecting the problem into constituent parts, identifying what the value is that we can add, having good interpersonal skills that we can sit down with a faculty member, gain or subject matter expert, gain their trust, have that influence without authority. Like those are the skills that are going to be used no matter what the technology du jour is.
Well, this is great response. I appreciate it, Jason. We have 5 minutes left. I want to open this up to
Yeah.
the audience. Do you have any question you'd like to ask?
Jason, I have a question.
Yes, Rasul.
So, Jason, in industry, the instructional design role is very diverse. The skill sets are so diverse. There are hundreds of authoring tools,
Yes.
graphic designing tools, LMS.
Yep.
So if you navigate through the advertisements, every other advertisement requires a different set of skills.
Yep.
They specifically name the tools. The candidate must know this tool.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's very true.
so this frustrates the new entrants in the instructional design field. They often ask what basic set of skills we should start with. and how to balance our skill set and industry requirements to be successful in the industry. Not higher ed, maybe in higher ed, skill set is limited, but in industry, it's so diverse. In manufacturing, services sector,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think, and I can speak most of the higher ed, but I still think it's generalizable to other industries too. Again, what inspired me to become an instructional designer was the fact that I loved to learn, right? And I wanted to be able to share that ability and that desire to learn with others. And as it pertains to the multiple tools that are out there, like I have had that situation where I worked for one place and they had a certain LMS, and then I worked for another place and it was a tool I had never used before. Working for the government, I had never used any of the governmental tools out there. But I was able to get that job in part because I said, look at this other tool I learned. I learned it in X number of days or X number of weeks or whatever it was. Look at the similarities between that tool and the tool you want me to learn. Look at the foundational characteristics. Like they all have a whatever left nav generator. They all have whatever in common, right? And say, I will do that same thing here. I love to learn. I'm going to sit down and do whatever it takes to understand and master this other tool. My perspective on tools is within a certain category, like learning management system, they all do basically the same thing. There are definitely nuances and differences, but if I can demonstrate mastery with one learning management system, I've been through 6 at least learning management systems, if not more. It's just, and then we're going to have a new one, right? Canvas is used on this campus frequently right now, but in 5 years, it'll be something different. And so just know, first of all, as a profession, your tool will change and you have to be able to adapt with that change. And you can demonstrate to your employer how you have adapted through that change in tools in the past.
With that, we are at time. I want to thank Jason again for your rich and insightful perspective you share with the crowd.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a great time.
And I want to thank all of you who joined us today. And Tori will send out the link if you wish to receive it. And will be the fall 2025 Instructional Design Career Series hosted by IDTO faculty. Again, I want to thank the sponsorship from Sankita's office. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to the IDTO faculty, to Tori. We are going to have another session next semester. Stay tuned. We would like to see you again. And have the rest of the week. If I don't see you again, also happy Thanksgiving holidays. Thank you, Jason.
Thank
Been a
you,
pleasure.
Jason.
Thanks
Thank you,
all.
everyone.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Also, just want to remind folks if they're interested in the master's degree program, upcoming spring deadline is December 1st.
Apply soon.
Yes.
Apply now.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.